You know, if this was fan subbing back in the day, they would have made the subtitles like right in this area here. I love how in a room full of people who just don't believe in him, the most powerful man in the room does believe him. He's like, yeah, we'll just trust this 6-year-old, it's fine. I love the fact that this man doesn't even consider Van disrespectful. He's just like, damn. No one would say that. You don't want glory, big dog? Nah, not really. The Black Balls stole my wife. I won't have them have this too, damn it. He refused to accept he can do something impressive because it would make his dismissal of Van all the more disrespectful. It's going to be cool to see how both fathers are going to realize that they sent away very talented people. The one thing about Lord Van's dad is as much of a dick as he is, he actually does get involved. There it is, best boys have made their appearance. They're playing whack-a-mole and you're the mole. I guess in theory, if we're gonna have like buildings below, we can't have acid because of friendly fire, but just saying. God damn. Yeah, these are my peeps. They really like to follow me for some reason. I don't know why. You ain't going anywhere, pretty boy. I hope he brought the lube, because they going in raw right now. Damn. Isekai dad who actually admits to his mistakes. So those are just some of the highlights. If you want to see the full reaction, is over on my Patreon. But let's jump into it. Ramparts came in thick this week. And in doing so, we actually witnessed something I don't remember seeing in some time. And what I'm specifically talking about isn't just the two big ramparts in front of Lord Van there. No, no, no. This man right here, Lord Van's father. I think we all had a very strong opinion walking into this episode. We can't wait to see this man on his knees, humbled, realizing his mistake. He tossed away the #1 son. But what we got instead might be something that might ruffle some feathers. Oh my god, we didn't disrespect him. We didn't get our revenge. Van was too nice. But instead we got really interesting writing. Because what normally happens is one of two things with a character like this. Father who quite loved and respected Van at first, thought of him as a curse, a disgrace, so he tossed him away. We want one of two things to happen. His death, something like that, you know, damn, we could have saved him, blah, blah, blah. And Van gets to live on top. Or he's gonna try to be very like, I always knew you were strong, I tossed you away to protect you, and so I wanted you to become a man. I always believed in you, I just had to have a firm hand. What did they do instead? He just said, I might have been wrong. I think that might be underwhelming for some people, but I'd actually say it's the proper way to go about this, because here's the thing. All throughout this episode, I saw moments with his character that I was like, oh, he's clearly not the same as we've seen before. Usually a person in his power, lord of a kingdom, lord of a domain, whatever, right, would be sitting on his throne, giving orders, drinking, eating. Oh, my stupid ass shoulders, they should be doing more than this. And what does this man do instead? He actually gets on the front lines. As much as we might have a strong opinion, how he treated Van, blah, 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 was horrible, whatever, he's not useless. He's actually a talented lord. And if you put yourself in his shoes, not as the viewer, not as the, oh my god, we're watching an isekai, so therefore Van has to be special. Imagine you're a father, lived a very full life, successful life. You do know it all in the picture of probably most people in this world. The concept of creation magic is considered pointless and stupid and a disgrace. That is how people are raised and taught. Yes, we do think for ourselves when we get in our adult years, hopefully. But at the end of the day, given the context of this world, he probably was nicer to Van than most people would be. I firmly believe a lot of lords, or hell, even just poverty-stricken people in this world, would Hansel and Gretel their kid's ass, or Old Yeller their ass, if put in his shoes. Instead, yeah, he did throw him to basically a wasteland, but probably better than most would get in this world. Not saying it's right, but when you put yourself in a powerful lord's position in this world, not we're watching an isekai or what is the nice thing to do, just put yourself in a logical lord's position, he probably was actually nicer to Van than a lot of people would be. And rather than immediately going, well, why didn't you use that power for me? Why didn't you prove yourself? He's just immediately, he decides to leave. Rather than being like, you know, I need to talk to Van, I'm proud. He's just like, yeah, I'm gonna leave. He literally says, I might have been wrong. For, yeah, an arrogant, a very proud, prideful person, that's a hard pill to swallow. Rather than having a preemptive early conversation with Van, he's thinking, I gotta go think on this. I talked mad shit in front of a very powerful king. I talked shit in front of a son I disregarded, and yet he held his composure around me. I probably was wrong. I am not saying it wouldn't be satisfying to see that man get sucker punched. But this episode turned my complete tune on him of rather than wishing for his downfall and death, I want to see where he'll take his kingdom and how eventually Van and him could potentially work together. Because I do think that's on the table. Van is not a revengeful kind of guy. Van's the type of guy that if dad came to him and said, I was wrong, my bad, son, I would like us to be involved and work together. You can still obviously be your lord, blah, blah, blah. I think he'd be like, yeah, that's great. I got to put my people first. But I'm okay getting drinks once in a while. But I could also see Van say, you know what? You had your opportunity. You threw me away. Politically, we will be involved, and that's okay. Besides that, I'm done with you. And I think his dad would be like, fair. This is not your average shitty isekai father. I thought it was. I really did. I thought I knew exactly what we were getting with him. And instead, we got something much more complex. And that's another round of applause for Easygoing Territory Defense, which has an obnoxiously low score in my anime list. r/anime considers it just the mid-isekai of the season. But as I like to say now, anything that has a below 7 average, like if it's got like a 6 average on Mal anymore, you can bet your sweet ass it's probably going to be something that's actually pretty fucking amazing. I also really appreciate what they did with Van when it came to the kind of big political meeting of the episode. So you got all these different powerful lords, and Lord Van basically is like, yeah, I'm not going to go to the front lines. Which should be disrespectful as hell. Like, what do you mean? Like, you'll get glory. I love how Big Boss is just kind of like, bro, this fucking kid, man. Like, he's not even mad at him. He's just more like, why wouldn't you want glory? And Van's out here just straight up like, yeah, I don't want to go because I got people to protect. I have a very up-and-coming village. Without me, who knows what will happen to him. And he's a man of the people. And I think what's super fun about this episode is that it's not just about Van's father dynamic. It's also about his probably future fiance. I mean, they haven't explicitly said that's going to happen. I mean, she very much has implied that she wants it. Van has been very indecisive because it's not really his top priority. But you could assume Arte is going to be like the wife at some point. I feel like they're definitely progressing that because her father is also here, and it's interesting to see the difference in dynamics because both for Van towards his dad and her towards her father, they're both very uncomfortable situations, but Van doesn't feel like he's an abused child. Van's kind of like, oh, hey, dad. Yeah, you're kind of shitty to me. Like, Van's the type of guy who you could break his leg and he'd probably find a way to be like, it's a glass half full sort of situation. Because there's always something to smile, though. Where she's very much like, oh god, I'm thinking of the times I've been beat, the times I've been cast aside. And it's going to be interesting to see, because I really felt like we were going to see, in this episode, her use her abilities and have her father be on his knees begging for forgiveness. Now, one battle down, second to go, because now we're going back to his capital. I imagine that's where she'll flex her abilities, and dad will probably realize his mistakes. And if anything, I think it's going to be a complete different reaction. I'm expecting this whole episode that Lord Van's dad's going to be on his knees being like, please, Van, come back to the kingdom. I loved you. I was wrong, or blah, blah, blah. I always knew you're powerful. I think he's going to have that reaction. I always knew you were special. I just had to push you out your... I think this man's going to be a grade A douchebag. And either Lord Van or Arte herself is going to be like, go fuck yourself. And I think it's going to be great to witness. It's kind of a Uno reverse. You're expecting that Lord Van's dad's going to be the biggest dick, but I think it's actually going to be him. It is kind of interesting, though, because all the lords are immediately starting to realize that this little 8-year-old child's actually kind of built different, and that's quite exciting. But this was a great episode. I mean, in terms of thought-provoking nature, one of the best for sure. Not saying it's the overall best produced episode. There's definitely been better produced episodes, but it did its job, and man, this just furthered my appreciation of this series tenfold. You let me know your thoughts down below, though. Make sure you drop a like, share, support, subscribing, and that bell if you haven't already, and Patreon, you can catch full live reactions over there and other exclusives, because you know I gotta give those video shoutouts to these patrons, because of why you get these YouTube videos at all. As today, we got Soaking the Lurker, C, Dennis Jansen, Groudon Vert, James Reinhard, DX, FBI, D-Chip, Old Do, Lorena Frazier, and Marcus Richards. So I appreciate the support. Please take care. You know, have a good one.